Good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's panel on conservation travel. I'm Grace. I'm from Stewart Red Queen. We are a sustainability and impact consultancy, and joining me today we have, Leon from Livingseas and Violi from Sursak. Yeah. Okay. So today's panel will give us I'll give the speakers a moment to introduce themselves a bit more in depth later. But yeah, so just for some context setting, today's panel will give us the opportunity to learn more about ecotourism in Bali. And so that encompasses conservation travel, restoration travel, and other sustainability related activities while you're, touring around. And so we all know that, ecotourism has the potential to generate positive impact, right? Whether it's through activities that benefit the environment or ecosystems, or whether it's through activities that empower local communities to take on more sustainability efforts. And Bali is a perfect place to explore this. It's one of the top tourist destinations in Asia. And I found a really interesting statistic, which is that last year, in 2024, Indonesia saw around 12 million foreign tourists, and about 6.3 million of those went to Bali. So yeah, it's quite a significant portion there. But despite all this, the amazingness that is Bali, there's also some challenges that are exacerbated by tourism. So that includes environmental degradation and marine and coastal pollution. And thankfully today we are joined by two individuals who have dedicated their lives and have spearheading activities that will tackle these issues. So maybe as a quick self-introduction, Violi, would you like to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Grace. Hi, everyone. My name is Violi. I am born, bred in Bali, although spent a few years in Singapore, which is why I guess I'm in the panel. I spent a couple last years to actually work on waste management issues in Indonesia. Spent a couple of years working in Bali, and now I co-founded a waste startup. We are based in Jakarta, but we work with community to build waste collection point across Jakarta. So I think that's from me.
Hi, I'm Leon, Singapore born and bred, but somehow ended up in Bali. Still there, been there about 15 years now, but back and forth. During the pandemic, I decided to stay completely there. I mean, why come back to a big city when there's a pandemic, right? So I stayed there and I started a project. So we plant corals, so very much in line with ecotourism. Trying to make tourism a force for good rather than destructive, I am trying. So we planted about 4,000 square meters of coral so far, about 164,000 coral fragments so far, and still going on. And my main idea is to make it accessible to everyone. So we got school kids coming, corporate goods coming, we get primary school kids from Bali that are coming right now. I'm doing a big push to get local communities, local schools, orphanages to come over for free. So that's next big thing I'm trying to do this year.
Cool. Thank you both so much. Before diving deeper into the panel questions today, let me just paint a bit of a picture, right? So we all know that Bali has an economic reliance on tourism. About 54% of the gross regional product comes from tourism-related activities, and a significant portion of the Balinese population is also reliant on tourism for their livelihoods. So that's, I guess you can say, one of the advantages. It gives Bali money, but it also has, on the other hand, we have issues like the fact that tourism, or the average tourist, produces around 3.5 times more waste than a local Balinese, and about 33,000 tons of plastic actually enters Bali's waterways every year. So that leads to waste pollution, marine and coastal degradation. With all this in mind, maybe both of you can share a bit more about how your organizations are tackling these issues.
So, like I mentioned, we want to turn tourism into a force for good. So my idea is that if we can make tourists come and do something that they enjoy, they want to go snorkel anyway, right? So might as well come and plant some coral, right? So the environment benefits from the fact that they have come and done this activity. And then, so people learn a little bit about the ocean. People get to enjoy their snorkeling, they get to see a beautiful reef. And the ocean benefits because there's something left over, something good that's left over, not plastic that's left over, but something that's growing because of them, because they came to us. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Along the way, also we try to be as sustainable as possible. We don't have plastic cups and the plastic water bottles. We filter everything. Processes like that. We try to be as sustainable as possible. So we're not creating the impact at the same, creating a negative impact at the same time we're creating a positive impact. So that's what we were doing.
I actually didn't know that Bali has so much visitors every year. It's actually half of Indonesians' international visitor, I assume. So what my organizations do is essentially we co-founded Sirsak as a way to try to tackle plastic pollutions at scale. And what we find specific for Indonesia in particular is actually the power of community. It's the way that we have been living. Community work are very important, especially in Bali. And what we do is really leveraging these community activities to encourage waste sorting at home, but also not just as collection point, but also as a center for behavior change. So we started with the community to do the educations and the awareness raising about the dangers of plastic pollutions, the importance of doing waste sorting at home. So that's essentially what we do on the ground. But we also see doing it at scale means technology. So we also building a platform to trace the waste journey. So we build a platform to do the traceability to ensure the transparency for the waste supply chains within our collections point.
Cool, thank you both so much. So my first question is for Violi. So you talked a bit about what exactly Sirsak is doing, and I would like to know, what does tourism in Bali have to evolve to in order to really reduce waste pollution?
I think I would say as individuals, I would encourage us to rethink our intentions, right, when we go to travel. I do travel as well myself, not in Bali. I did a little bit when it was in COVID. Actually, my first time traveling in Bali was because of COVID. And I think it's really rethink our intention of going traveling. Do we go there to care about where we're going? Are we there to actually experience nature and actually learning about the culture? So I think when that start, we're starting to put our interests below the interests of the place that we're going. I think what happened now and what caused plastic pollution in general is that we are putting our interests over everything else. So we prefer convenience, right? We bring our plastic bottles because it's easier to buy in convenience store. We use plastic straw because it's just way easier to slurp than to drinks. And all those small little things add up. And I think as a tourist, it's as easy as for us to start caring and rethink our intentions when we go to a certain place that we go. So I think as individual. But of course, Bali has bigger problem for that, of course. Tourism made up for I think 15% of the waste is huge, but it's still not the whole story. We do need better infrastructures. We need more awareness across the island. We need better government policy, for example. And there's a lot of things that needs to happen to really make a more better Bali, better tourism. And for us individually, is really can we make a contributions? And there is no small actions. There is too small. I think it's all about making actions.
Thank you for that, Violi. So I think you brought on an interesting point, right? So there is individual action and there's also systemic change that needs to happen, right? So a lack of waste management infrastructure is a huge reason why waste pollution is occurring in Bali. Maybe could you, I know this is a bit of a sudden question, could you speak to that a bit in the sense of, is the local government, is the Indonesian government in fact coming up with investing, for example, in developing Bali's infrastructure? Do you see any hope in that sense?
Well, do I see hope? Of course, we do have to. If I lose hope, I think that will start no actions. The local governments do a lot of investments, maybe not enough, but I think they do a lot, especially in Bali. thanks to the tourisms. Indonesia is a huge place, right? We have tens of thousands of islands, and Bali is being in the spotlight for its plastic pollution, for the better or for the worse, because then there's so many spotlight in Bali. The government did a lot of infrastructures improvement in Bali. It has been going around for a couple of years. There is a lot of international spotlight in Bali as well that actually push that kind of investment in infrastructures. There were G20 last 2 years ago, there was ASEAN a year ago, and all those international conference, and the number of influencers, people who come to Bali that really, if you see, maybe you have seen like the videos of people diving and see a lot of plastic waste in the oceans, and that really adds up. And I think we as Indonesians really try to do what is right. There is a policy to introduce tourist tax, I think, probably this week or recently. That every tourist, if you go to Bali now, you have to pay, I think it's a small amount, it's like $10 to the governments, and that amount will goes to nature conservations. And I think that's kind of the first step towards the right directions. But I wouldn't say it's enough. I think we need more. We need more infrastructures. We need more awareness building. We need more people to care. And I think I just want to reiterate, actually, as tourists, there is so much power that you all have when you come to Bali, because our government actually listens to foreigners, because they will be ashamed if things doesn't look nice in Bali. And as tourists, when we start caring, when we start choosing eco-friendly hotels, and that kind of like build up the industry, like the green industry as tourists, when we start caring.
Thanks for that, Violi. Yeah, that's actually a very valid point, right? I mean, I guess we are the source of money, and they listen to where the money comes from.
Exactly.
Okay, and now for Leon. So when we talk about ecotourism, I think we have to overcome this huge issue, which is greenwashing, right? So there's ecotourism, and the activities related to that actually generate positive impact, right? Are we just claiming it is without showing something? So Leon, first question, what is ecotourism to you?
I'm a bit biased, of course, but if you look at it, ecotourism as a term, as an idea, has been around maybe for a decade, maybe 15 years. And in the past, what that has meant is that you go to a place that maybe has no aircon, right? Natural cooling, right? They maybe use organic shampoos, right? But is that really ecotourism, right? Maybe you're doing a little bit more sustainable thing, but that's not ecotourism. I think there's a new term right now called regenerative tourism, and I think that's the way it should go. That's what it should be, where you go to a place as a tourist and you make it better, right? You leave something behind, not bad things, but you leave something positive, right? You leave a positive impact. You grow something, regenerate something, restore something. Then it works. That to me would be ecotourism, where you're actually making a positive impact. Like Ian said, planting the tree in Africa. So he left Africa, I don't know if the tree survived, but but if it did, then he left a positive impact. That would be a good form of tourism, right? Right now we see all this trash in Bali. Just to add on to what you said, right? There is a lot of trash. Tourists do create a lot of trash. That's unavoidable because they're not there. They don't actually live there. So as you travel, you would buy water, you would buy snacks along the way. It's not as convenient as the hawker center down by your place, right? So, and I would also say social media is good and bad. Like, for example, the long tail of the Instagram, right? You get places that become so famous that just to go in and take one photo, you have to line up for 3 hours. And because of that mass concentration of humanity in one place, that's what causes the problems, right? If everyone was more spread out, it'd be better. So again, another new concept that's coming up is slow travel, where you don't go to Bali and then you hit all the hotspots. You spend 3 hours in a car going there, spend another 2 hours waiting in the sun, and then you're hot, then you buy a bottle because that's what they sell there. So, but rather you go to one place. I stay in a small fishing village, maybe like 3,000, 4,000 people. I've had friends come and stay there, and I think my cousin was there over Chinese New Year for 4 days. He did absolutely nothing. He totally enjoyed it. He didn't even go out to the sea, ironically enough. Right? He just woke up, hung out with me, drink at night, and go back and sleep. That's slow travel. Very minimal impact, right? And that's how you see the true Bali, right? You're not hitting the hotspots, the malls per se. Like in Jakarta, it's very mall culture, right? You want to see what the place is really like. Not a tourism, again, sorry to all the Singaporeans here, but all the attractions here are not natural also, right? You're not seeing the real Singapore. It's kind of fake, it's built up. Marina Bay Sands, Gardens by the Bay, no offense, it's beautiful, but it's not natural, right? What Ian was talking about, walking along the intertidal zones, that's Singapore's nature, right? And we don't even realize that that's something we can do, right? So that's kind of travel, if you ask me, I would consider ecotourism, where you're actually in nature, you're actually slow traveling through a particular nature that's authentic. That's ecotourism to me.
Nice. So, Leon, if we go visit you in the fishing village, will you also drink with us?
Of course.
Okay. So, yeah, and I think it's very valid points, right? But how would you say that individuals and organizations can really ensure that when we go about traveling, and calling it eco-travel, that we are generating positive impact?
I think it's a choice, right? Like yesterday we heard from Big Tiny, small houses in Lazarus, right? And what they do is every room that's booked, they plant the tree somewhere else. I think that's a cool idea, so it's on the onus of the operators. It's on their mindset, right? Tourism, ultimately, you follow what's trendy. You go to what you see on the Instagram, and that's what informs you. Oh, this is a beautiful place, so I want to go there. But when you go there, who are you dependent on? You're dependent on the accommodation providers. You're dependent on the transport providers. So, to be truly ecotourism, it starts from that. I mean, I'm a tourism operator as well. I could have done tourism the bad way, right? And bring people out to destroy coral and give them plastic bottles every day. But I choose not to. Right? And I think more and more, how do I put it? As consumers, as we start to demand this, as we start to expect this level or standard, then maybe things can change. Because it is cheaper. I mean, hate to say it, but we're all capitalists, right? It is cheaper to do the unsustainable thing, right? Organic shampoos are more expensive, right? Providing reusable water bottles are more expensive. It's dirt cheap to buy a plastic water bottle, sad to say. Right? That's why it persists. Right? When the sustainable thing becomes the no-brainer thing, that's when it becomes the norm. Right? And if operators look at it from a capitalist point of view, that's not going to change. Right? It's a much bigger issue at play here, if you ask me.
Nice, I like that. So it's really about making it part of our everyday lives, making it a norm. And then
the default.
The default. Yeah. Starting with ourselves and then hoping that organizations, institutions will change along with that. Okay, that's cool. And so I think all this conversation is also really targeting about, ecotourism really targets generating a net positive impact. And when we talk about net positive impact, it means that the actions that we take, right, and the activities we do have to give back more to society and the environment than it takes out of it. So, first question for Violi. We know that one of SERSAG's main impact objectives is to actually increase the welfare of the stakeholders in your supply chain. So how does SERSAG, through your activities, ensure that your services benefit everyone?
Sure. So our mission is actually try to put more transparency to the waste supply chains, especially in Indonesia, because when I say waste supply chains, most of the time we don't think about it. When we talk about waste, we always think that, when we throw it out of our sight, it's actually gone. But waste doesn't go away, right? It's there, especially for recyclable waste. It goes through another cycles that give them a second life. And in Indonesia in particular, that supply chain is actually pretty long and it involves a lot of stakeholders. So I'm talking about the waste pickers, the informal sectors, informal businesses who do aggregations and recycling. And when those chains are not traced, are not transparent, that's where the problem lies with securing proper funding. And that's where it stems the problem of waste picker doesn't get paid well, low wages, it's difficult and dangerous working situations. So what we try to do is to put transparency back into that supply chains through technology. So we try to digitize the supply chains, and by doing that, we'll have all the data on where this waste goes. It's still work in progress, if you ask me. It's really challenging to do that in Indonesia, but the idea is really once we know who is involved, and we can secure more funding, we can. Our mission is really to distribute that more fairly to everyone in the supply chains. We wanted to do more. We want to include all these players into what we will consider more formal. We want to ensure better working conditions for the people who is involved within our collections point. And through that, we really wanted to create more positive impact across the supply chains, essentially.
See, so you said that it's a bit of a challenge now, right? Collecting data in Bali. Could you explain a bit of why it's so challenging?
I can talk whole day about it. But essentially, if you think about waste in Indonesia, it goes through a lot of chains. Maybe in Singapore, it doesn't really, you don't really relate to it. But what happened? Let's say I throw my waste. It will end up in the side of your house. There will be, I don't know, 2-3 people might be eyeing for your waste. So one will be the waste collectors that you paid for the services. They will do I think weekly collections, but you also have waste pickers who actually go door by door trying to collect recyclables. These waste, depending on the materials, what we call in recyclables, there is high value and low value. So high value is things like your plastic bottles is very high value. And then we have low value plastic, like your flexible plastic, your sachet, or lesser value or no value. They will all go through different chain, right? Your high value, maybe it will go through the waste pickers, and then it will go to an informal collectors. It might go to another aggregators. We call it aggregators, so they will aggregate more. These aggregators might go to shredders, people who do shredding, and then the shredded plastic will go to another factories who will turn it into plastic pellets, and then the pellets will go to another factory who will turn it into a new life. So it could be our clothes, it could be a new bottles. So that's for low value. That's for high value, sir. Low value will go through a lot more. It might go pick it up, and then they realize they sort it, or there's no value. It will go to another people, and then it will go to landfill, or maybe they burn it. The issue we have is actually the informality and the long supply chains. And I think the principle is really tough to track something informal and long, because then you have to convince a lot of players. In each of the supply chains, in each of the materials, and in each of the point that they're doing. So what is really difficult is the informality. So people doesn't want to be tracked. There's a lot of this tax issue because they think when you track it, they will have to go formal, they have to register their business, all those things. So it takes a lot of convincing. And it takes a lot of effort to actually track it from end to end.
See, so I'm just like asking out of pure curiosity here. It's a bit off our script, but when you say tracking and how it's tough to get buy-in, right? What do you do to really overcome that obstacle? Then is there something that attracts these informal waste collectors to participate in SERSAP?
Yes, so we are trying to see what is their incentive, right? We give out incentive at the moment. So we do these 2 things. So one, we trying to give out incentive for these informal sectors to actually use our platform. So whenever they enter input, what they buy and sells, we give incentive per kilograms that they enter to our platform. Another thing that we do is also actually owning the whole chain on our own. So we have our own collection points, and then we will encourage people to, okay, why don't you go this guy who is more formal, and then we can track them, and then to this guy who is doing the recycling. So we're trying to shorten the chains within what we can control, but the bigger idea that we want is actually because we don't want to replace anyone in the chains. We don't want to replace people who is earning money, livelihood from that. So we really trying hard to find, for now, incentive, which is money, but we wanted to offer welfare as well. So for every 2 tons that we collected within our platform, we're actually giving social security to the informal workers. So we are trying to tackle that with a better incentive, a more formal way of doing it.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so it's really evident here that for SERSAC, it's about data transparency, right? And collecting all this data, reporting on it in order to ensure a net positive impact. And our questions for Leon. So we know that Livingseas really has focused efforts on reef restoration and reducing coastal and marine pollution. How does Livingseas go about demonstrating its net positive impact?
I think there's a number of different aspects, right? So the most direct one would be how many corals we plant. How much acreage have we covered with coral right now? That's an easy one. I think the harder one is always the social aspect. So we had an intern come over last year. She did this study about how much money comes into the village. So she calculated, and this was something I didn't know either. And this money coming in goes to accommodation. So people come, they would stay there. They would have dinners in the restaurants and warongs around. They would have transportation to get to Parangbai in the first place. And she calculated all this. She did surveys from like a few months, and she extrapolated to a whole year. The number came up to about $300,000 to this small little village. And that's not money coming to the project. This is money going to the village themselves. So that kind of impact, I think, is important because, like I mentioned earlier, right, if we don't have the monetary impact, or we don't have the monetary kind of, we're all capitalists, right? So money makes the world go round. If we don't look at it that way, then it's very difficult, right? So how I'm trying to make the impact is like, I call it the triple win. The environment wins when people come to us because something is left over, right? They plant some coral and that continues to grow. People enjoy themselves, they learn something, so they win as well. And the business wins, right? And right now I've got more than 30 staff, locals, most of them from Parangbai itself. I got them when they were like, most of my diving guys, I think the youngest I hired was like 16. They don't worry, they don't care about underage working. But 16 and a half, so it's okay. Now he's 19. So most of them are very young, and they didn't graduate from school. I think one of my guys, he didn't even finish primary school because he lost his parents and then he had to go work to take care of his younger brother. So stories like that, most of my guys grew up that way, village boys. So by giving them this sustainable income for, about 3 to 4 years now, most of them, that's another impact that we create. So the easy one, things that we publish, the reef numbers. But I think what's more important and the way to lasting change is this social impact, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's something that you can see as a common point across Livingseas and SERSAC, right? They really focus on giving back to the communities, giving back to the Balinese people. So that's really cool. Leon, I have a question for you. You said you have these young boys that are part of your organization. There's a name, right?
Yeah, we call them the skinny boys. They're really very skinny. I don't know how, but they're all really, really skin and bones, and muscle now.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. So
descriptive term, not derogatory, mind you.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. I dive myself, and the tank is so heavy, and the dive instructors from Indonesia, they're always very lean. It's just full of muscle. It's quite impressive.
Well, I work them hard, so carrying heavy things.
Okay, so Leon, another question for you. So you go about trying these coral restorations and coral planting in order to really help the ecosystem around there. Do you see any challenge? Do you face any challenges firstly in these coral restoration projects, and especially what challenges do you face when trying to scale it up further?
I think one of the biggest challenges is awareness. If you talk to any city person what are corals? You know, they never heard of it. Unless you're a diver, snorkeler, or you go to the ocean a lot, why would you know? Right? You talk about trees, everybody gets it. Right? Plant the tree, save the world, everybody gets it. Plant the coral, what is that? How does that affect me? You know, so that kind of over top line awareness is missing for coral. Coral restoration is still very much in its infancy. We're only recently starting to hear terms like blue economy, blue carbon, or blue everything lah. It's like maybe the past 3 years or so. So before that, nobody really knows, nobody really cares. Because if you don't see it, touch it, feel it, you don't care about it, right? It's not even in your awareness. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest challenges we face. And in what we do, I think we are easily top 5 in the scale of planting that we do. We're also one of maybe very few organizations in the world that offer what we do. So it's kind of a new, unique activity that not many people, you wouldn't search for it generally if you don't know about coral. So I would say the awareness thing is one of the biggest challenges I face to scaling. Right now we're looking at pushing out to more schools because teachers love it, because it's a good activity. It hits all 3 points for them. The kids get to enjoy themselves, it's active. The kids in the water, they don't scream so much also. So the teachers can relax. And we handle all the risk, right? So we set everything up nicely, so they love it. And the kids get to learn something and then get to create an impact also. So that's kind of the thing we're trying to do, to get a bit more school groups, get a bit more awareness from that point of view.
So awareness building, that's very valid. I also know that recently, after stalking your Instagram, you've had there was a huge issue, right? They were trying to clear out this huge space of, like coral, and I think your organization had to take that, try to replant the coral elsewhere. Can you speak about that a bit?
Yeah, so there's this beach about 5 to 10 kilometers from where we are, across this really big bay. And the funny thing is, it's quite ironic. So a long time ago, tourism came to this village maybe in the 80s. And back then they didn't know anything, right? So they started mining the coral to build the hotels. And until today, you can still see the cement, there's coral bits in it. And as a result, what happened was the waves started hitting the beach and eroding the entire beach. It used to be a long stretch of white sand beach, 20, 30 meters wide, Chanidasa, And because that got eroded, now the buildings are over the water. They built seawalls, didn't help. Built some breakwaters, didn't help. Now they're going to reclaim the whole area. Now in the space of 30 years, about 3,000 to 4,000 square meters of coral has started growing there. And then now, the ironic thing is, by rebuilding the beach, they're going to kill this coral again. So right now what we're doing is we're trying to harvest as much as possible, bring it over to our site, and then, keep them happy, keep them living, so that when they finally finish this reclamation project, we can bring the corals back and replant it there.
See, so this coral replanting effort, right? Do you require any, if I was a tourist, and for example, I have my diving certification and everything, could I help with that, or do I need a specialized skill set?
Not really. I think we try to be as open as possible to anybody who wants to come and help. You have to pay for the experience, because diving it's not like beach cleanup where anybody can go and pick up trash. Right, diving requires boat, tanks, equipment, so it's a bit more logistically intensive. So we cannot bear that. It's already costing us a lot of money. So every time I go harvest, it's a few $100s, and most of the time it's just my crew. People who do come and help, get them pay for just to cover the costs, and then we will teach everything. So I don't want to create a system where, oh no, you're not a marine scientist, you cannot come and join me, Because when I started in coral restoration, first thing I did, Millian's not here, right? First thing I did when I got interested was I emailed TMSI. Until now, 15 years, still haven't replied me yet. Okay, don't tell her. Yeah, but she knows that story. But basically, that's it. This kind of thing shouldn't be only in the realm of academics or NGOs or, no, this is something I'm doing, you cannot come and join me. I want everybody to be able to experience and participate. So that's one way. The other way is donate some money so I can harvest more.
Okay, thank you, Leon. So one last question for both our panelists before we open it up for Q&A. what should we as tourists consider on our next trip to Bali?
Like I mentioned earlier, I think regenerative tourism, slow travel, right? I tell people when they come to Bali, oh, where have you been? Why are you going? It's always Canggu and go to this beach club and go to this fancy place. And say, where should I go? I say, whatever you find on the internet, don't go there. If it's on the internet, confirm busy, confirm crowded, no fun, right? Just do the slow travel thing, see the real Bali, get out of the tourist hotspots. Then you see the authentic Indonesia.
I don't go to beach club anymore because it's crowded, and it's really annoying to go Canggu nowadays. But I think for me, I really love culture, right? I think as a tourist, maybe try to learn a little bit more about the place that you're going. In Bali, there is this very famous philosophy called Tri Hitakarana, which directly translated to three sources of happiness. It's really about relationship between us and God or a higher being, between us and fellow human beings, and us with nature, which what I really love. And this harmony is something that we live by actually, day in, day out. And it's something started to erode with the coming of tourisms and modernity and all those things. And I think it would be really beautiful to always come back to how we have lived our life in the past 50 years, for example. And this philosophy really encompass that, right? How do we live as a human being? It's not just about us. And I think my problem with people nowadays, including myself, is we are putting self-interest above everything else. And we forget that we live with other people. We forget that we live with nature. And I think as a tourist, it's really how we learn things when we go to the place, rather than just thinking about, okay, where's the next cool things we need to take picture from. Thank you.
Let me tell you a story of what I did last time. When I first went to Bali, this was, I think, 2012, 2013. So I was already there, but I was in and out, so I didn't really know Bali very well. And I had a girlfriend at the time, so what we did was we booked this trip and had no plan. So I basically rented a car for 7 days, and then we circumnavigated all of Bali, from the east, the coastal road, all the way around. Every night we book one hotel somewhere, and then in the day we wake up, have breakfast, and then no map, no Google Map, nothing, just drive and get lost. I got lost so many times. Car got stuck on the beach, people had to push me out. But what an experience, right? Just really exploring the real Bali. Found so many interesting places, found so many interesting people. But then when it comes down, when it starts getting dark, okay, then we turn on Google Maps and go to the next place to sleep. That's it. And that kind of travel, I did it again during the pandemic because I was kind of stuck there. Started doing that in Lombok also. No destination, no nothing. I drove from Bali to Jakarta also. Right, that kind of travel I find more authentic lah. Have no plan, don't search anything on the internet, don't hit the hotspots. Just in the spirit of exploration, get in the car and go. Sadly, Singapore, we don't have the opportunity to do road trip. The furthest you can go is Changi Airport to Jurong East. That's it. But it's quite an experience lah. You see the real place. So try that.
Thank you both. Really, anything else to add?
I just want to say, as a locals, I'm the last person who knows what's the hotspot in Bali. I always tell my friend who come to Bali, you just tell me where you want to go. I'll be your driver. Because normally nobody in Bali knows where the hotspot until the tourists came and tell us, oh, that's the hotspot. Oh, okay, I'll go there. So I'll agree with Leon. I think it's really about experience the real Bali rather than the hotspots.
I love that so much. I think it's really about, there's being more conscious of you yourself as an individual, your actions, and also the fact that you are so interconnected, right, with the people around us, the communities and nature. And I think that's a point that Ian also brought up in his panel. Yeah, so thank you both so much. I'd like to open up the conversation to the audience if you have any questions for Leon or Violi.
So just now I was just reading up on the cleaning up of the Singapore River, and to put things in perspective, it took 10 years and $300 million to do. And Singapore River is on a much smaller scale than, let's say, the amazing work that you are doing in Bali. And I think yesterday Leon also sort of pointed out this point, is that we are like running out of time. If climate change going past the peak is not urgent, maybe we could have still had the luxury of time to slowly change awareness. But even with the concerted effort of multiple agencies in Singapore, and Lee Kuan Yew like hounding everyone, to clean up the river, it still took 10 years, and that was very surprising to me. I didn't know before reading up on that. So just wanted to find out about what you all think in terms of grassroots action, like any thoughts on how it could potentially work to chase back all the time that we are losing. Yeah, thanks.
So I would say you are absolutely right. I think the best time, there's a lot of this quote, the best time of planting trees is always yesterday, right? We lost a lot of the time. I'll see it this way. I think the big cleanup or the big things that we do about cleaning up what already in nature, it's something we need to do quickly. But what we do in Sirsak, especially with the grassroots communities activity, is to make sure that we don't come back to that old habit. We want to sustain whatever we do, because the worst thing can happen is that we keep cleaning up our oceans and it will never end, right? We're never turning the taps. So I think both has to come together. Of course, grassroots and communities will take a long time, but I think it's still necessary because that's how we're going to sustain our impact. But the big cleanup is also necessary because it's already too much waste and plastic on the oceans.
So Singapore takes 10 years and 300 million. The good and bad thing about Indonesia, everything costs 10 times cheaper, but 10 times longer. Now, I think when looking at the waste issue, right, a couple of years ago, I started a zero waste store in Padang Bai where I'm at, and it was targeted towards locals. Traditionally, when you look at this kind of organic, zero waste, it's very ang moh lah. A lot of foreigners, they will go there, all the expats. You never see any local go to this kind of shop. So I thought, okay, let's try to do something and see if we can educate them to do it, to make that change. What I learned is they don't actually care. Right? They rather buy the cheap thing. It's partly a disposable income concept. So it's cheaper to buy things in bulk. But if you only have $20 for your whole month, you're not going to spend 10% of that on the big bottle, the 1 liter bottle of shampoo. You'd buy the 10-cent packet of sachet. And that's the reality, right? There's not much disposable income. So the other thing is convenience. I mean, they ride bikes everywhere, but they rather just walk next door to buy from their neighbor, because if they don't buy from him, then he got no income. So they malu, they paise, they want to help their neighbor, so they'll continue doing the unsustainable thing, right? So if you look at it, there are a number of different issues, right? We're talking about grassroots. I look at waste in 5 aspects. There's the manufacturer, right, who produced the plastic in the first place. They have no incentive to change because people still buy. Then you get the producers of the products themselves, Unilever, Aqua bottles, all this. Again, no incentive to change. It's the safe, hygienic, lightweight, hygienic option. I hate to say it, but plastic is one of the best materials we've ever created. It's so good that we can't get rid of it, right? And the third part is the consumer. Now the consumer, again, this was my learning from the zero waste store. If you don't give them alternative, a lot of people say, oh, don't use plastic, don't use this, don't use that. But what's the alternative? What option do they have? On the fourth part, that's where CSR comes in. Collections and then recycling. Right? So on these 5 levels, you have to deal with it. It's a systemic thing. The way I look at it is a systemic issue. right? Even recycling is not the cure-all, because are you reducing the whole total volume of global plastic? No, it's just going back into new plastic, right? The total global volume is still not going down, right? Things like incineration, where you get rid of the plastic completely, then that's the only way you're actually bringing down the total volume of plastic. So if you analyze it that way, it's a systemic issue, right? And systemic issues, I hate to say it, but you need some government mandate. What's good about Singapore is that we're very good with systems. I think I mentioned yesterday, we do produce per capita the most amount of plastic waste, right? 76 kilograms per person per year, I think. But you see it all on the beaches in Indonesia because there's no system, there's no collection system, there's no recycling system, there's no incineration system. So, and that kind of big investment has to come from top down, sad to say. I tried to build, we did build a small little incinerator for the village, and then they don't want to use it. It's a high temperature burning, so the ash produced is very small, but they don't want to use it because they say it's too small. So again, multiple issues around that. Not that simple. Even if you give a ground-up solution, they may not want to use it. I have stories of small-scale pyrolysis as well in certain islands. Also don't want to use, or they broke down and then they never bothered to repair it. You heard about the Medang story?
What's that story?
Can I just add? I think about those machines, right? It's a very systemic. For example, if we're talking about small incinerators, we have a lot of these grants when people come in and give us, not us, but then the people, locals, small incinerators or small pyrolysis. The problem is actually come back to disposable income, actually. So we don't have enough electricity to actually power it. So when they see net, how much electricity they have to pay to generate electricity, it doesn't make sense. Especially when the coal is way cheaper than the oil that is being produced. So it's very systemic. Waste issue is not about, okay, I'm giving you technology, but it's really end to end. Can you power it? Do you have human capital to do it? Do you have demand to take over, the end results? So it's really systemic, and we need all walks, all stakeholders to actually do their part.
Thank you both so much for that. And thank you for your question as well. I think we have time for one more question, if there's anything. No? Okay, then I have a last question for you guys. So this is a bit more aspirational, right? As people who are, very involved in Bali, what do you envision for Bali in 2050?
My wish is simple. I hope the island doesn't disappear. I think 2050 is in, 25 years from now. It started to have flooding recently. Traffic is bad. Coral is being damaged, and really hope that the island has to start regenerations. I hope it doesn't disappear in 25 years. And I think what will be interesting to happen is we start the slow travel, right? Maybe like Bhutan, when you start get tourists selected, pay a lot more money to come in to travel in Bali, so we can control the quality rather than striving for a quantity. Because I think that's what the Bali travel and tourism has been all about. It's all about quantity, getting more money, more capitalistic, and that really hurt the environments and the people. But of course, we cannot ban it because we still need the economy. But can we substitute quantity to quality?
What I would hope for Bali in 25 years is things get spread out a bit more, People have a bit more of an idea about, Bali is about 7 to 8 times bigger than Singapore. But the hotspots is about the size of Singapore only, the southern part of Bali. Nobody goes anywhere else. The whole north coast is empty. But it's huge and it's beautiful. But people don't realize that because, again, I'm just following Instagram, sadly. So I hope that changes. I hope people recognize, the tree Hita Karana that she mentioned is something that Balinese really believe in. But somehow they use it in their spiritual life, but they don't use it in their daily life. Sad to say. So I hope for them, they really start to embrace that, and some of them adopt these ideas in their daily life also, but not everybody. Sadly, still, like you said, it's all about volume. So a lot of people are pumping it because of the money, you know. And again, it comes back down to that. So I hope that spreads out a bit more. Bali grows better lah, more infrastructure and things are, a bit more planning. You know, and being Singaporean, going there, you see this lack of planning, headache. So hopefully that changes also. In some small way, I hope to make that change in my small village lah.
Thank you both so much. Yeah, I think it's very inspirational, no? Both Livingseas and Sursak, the things that you're trying to achieve, and even though you might think of yourself as small organizations just trying to solve that little problem, but it really has a ripple effect, and I hope it inspires the audience today as well to be a bit more conscious when we travel next time. I think that's it. Thank you both, and thank you everyone.
Thank